Hey everyone, tonight we're heading into darker territory on age, defined by plague, brutal punishments, and simple We'll uncover the gritty truth of medieval life. Far removed from the castles and chivalry Hollywood loves to peddle. Believe me, you wouldn't last a single day back then. So, before you get too comfortable, take a moment to like this video and subscribe only. If you genuinely enjoy what I do, and drop a comment telling me where you tuning in from and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soothing background hum, and let's begin. A pale, sickly light filters through the narrow slits of a thatched hut as you awaken in 1325. Your bed is but a crusted pallet of straw, the fibers stiffened by months of moisture and crawling with uninvited guests. A rancid odor, part stale ale, part human sweat, part goat dunklings to your nostrils. There is no gentle stretch. The moment you shift, you feel ants scuttling across your skin and fleas leaping like acrobats between the rotting hay. From somewhere beyond the walls, the church bell tolls an unforgiving, metallic hammer blows, each clang a summons to the day's toil. You sit up, wincing as your joints crack and protest the spine of a middle-aged man trapped in the body of someone barely Your feet meet the floorboards, slick with yesterday's rain or crusted with the neighbor's chicken droppings. Either way, walking is a gamble on razor-sharp splinters and hidden puddles of filth. There is no sanctuary here. Each breath draws in a tapestry of scents you wish you could forget. The humid stink of livestock housed in the same single room. The sour temps of curdled milk, and that undercurrent of mold creeping into every fiber. No porcelain basin stands in the corner, only a wooden bucket, half full of yesterday's business. You know the ritual? Lift the lid, squat, then heave the contents into the alley below, shouting "Guardi" in a vain attempt to warn any unsuspecting breakfast, if you can call it that, awaits in a blackened cauldron over the hearth. Pottage, a gloopy stew of long-simmered grains, limp turnips, and whatever scraps courageously thrown in to bulk out the pot. It tastes of damp earth, simmered again and again, each ladle another test of your survival instincts. A hunk of rye bread as hard as stone accompanies it, plus a wooden mug of small beer, weak enough to ride the morning without succumbing to but strong enough to sting your throat. Clothing is no comfort. A threadbare tunic that has never felt the touch of soap, woven from itchy wool that scratches your flesh like 1,000 tiny needles. Beneath it, perhaps a linen shift that saw its last wash before your parents married. Footwear is a distant luxury. Most of the village trudges, barefoot, thickened soles the only refuge against the cold clay and jagged stones. Outside, the world beckons with its own cruelty. Your day's work begins at sunrise, hand tilling the Lord's fields, back bent beneath the weight of a wooden hoe. Sweat beads on your brow and drips into your eyes, and somewhere in that haze, a fly alights on your lip as if it owns a right to your flesh. The seasons offer no relief. Winter's wind bites through every gap in the walls, while summer's heat turns the air into a motionless furnace, choking you with humidity and breeding clouds of mosquitoes that feast upon you. This is your new reality, a daily ballet of hardship, where each moment is measured in toil, thirst, and the ceaseless battle against dirt. And yet, even Hiram, the squalor and the stench life claws on. You rise, you work, you endure. Fast forward for centuries, across a continent's breadth and into the gilded halls of St. Petersburg's Winter Palace. It is 1744 when a barely 14-year-old German princess, Sophie Friedrich August of Anhalt-Zerbst, steps off the transport carriage onto frozen cobblestones. The biting Russian wind whips through her thin wool cloak, and when she greets the lofty grandeur of the imperial court, the marble floors glisten like shards of ice. Yet behind her, timid bow, lies a fierce spark, an unspoken hunger for power that no amount of frost can extinguish. A name is never innocent. At her coronation into orthodoxy, she relinquishes Sophie forever, emerging as Catherine Alexeyevna, syllable echoing in vaulted corridors. The ceremony, incense-laden, air and flickering candlelight cloak her in mystery. A foreigner by birth, yet bound to Russia's destiny. As she kneels before icons, the hush of assembled nobility presses upon her, filled with veiled glances, some curious, some calculating. They see a blank slate. She sees a chest. The cage of the crown prince, her betrothed, Grand Duke Peter, is no poetic prince. He favors Prussian uniforms and war games over governing his vast realm, leaving Catherine to navigate a labyrinth of court factions alone. Whispers swirl of Peter's Prussian sympathies and his childish tantrums in private chambers. When he retreats behind closed doors, Catherine paces the mirrored halls, rehearsing alliances in her mind like a general plotting a siege. While Peter indulges soldiers in military parades, Catherine quietly summons those who matter. Gregory Orlov, a dashing cavalry officer with calculating eyes, learned men who translate Voltaire's, generals who chafe under Peter's pro-Prussian edict. Over hushed tea ceremonies, in velvet-draped salons, they plot not assassination to Messi but a silent transfer of power, a pivot of loyalty amongst the imperial guard, The coup like midnight lightning. In the chilling dawn of July 9, 1762, the coup unfolds like a blade sliding between ribs. Empress Elizabeth's death sends shockwaves through the palace. Peter assumes the throne, in drunken delight, draped in the trappings of power. But as he rides triumphantly through the courtyard, Catherine appears at his side, resplendent in emerald brocade. The guard, sworn to reform, circles the carriage. No blood is shed, yet Russia itself quivers as Peter is quietly arrested. Within hours, Catherine is proclaimed empress, her eyes cold and resolute, sweep the gathered crowd. She is both victor and vanguard of a new era. Reigns of reformer paradox forged from her oak-panelled study, Catherine summons the Legislative Commission of 1767. Delegates squabble in candlelit chambers over the fate of serfs, the extent of noble privilege, and the abolition of torture. Catherine's nakaz bristles with enlightenment, ideals equality before the law, religious tolerance, but every manifesto is counterbalanced by her equally shrewd decision to preserve serfdom. In her desk drawer lie drafts calling for freedom, yet across Europe, the aristocracy watches envious, unwilling to cede their labor force. Thus she tempers idealism with pragmatism, crafting reform that dazzles foreigners and reassures domestic lords. The Black Sea Gambit beyond ink and edict, Catherine's ambition prowls the battlefield. The thunder of cannon across the Black Sea ushers in her campaigns against the Ottoman Porte, under spiked helmets and billowing standards. Russian legion seize Crimea's golden shores, securing the warm water ports of her dreams. Victories are punctuated by lavish ceremonies. Catherine boards a captured Ottoman galley, her silken robes fluttering against the salt spray, declaring, "In my reign, Russia shall never freeze at her northern gates." Her smile in oil portraits belies the steel beneath. Poland's dissection maps redrawn in silence in diplomatic backrooms scented with pipe smoke. Catherine deftly negotiates with Frederick II and Maria Theresa. Three partitions of the Polish Lithuanian Commonwealth carve an empire out of frailty. Minsk, Vilnius, Sich, territory inked onto Russia's growing map. No roar of muskets, just the silent stroke of a quill as borders shift overnight. Her hand in this great game secures millions of new subjects, yet sows seeds of resentment that will echo through generations. The court of shadows and fire within the ornate palace lies. Catherine's most intimate court, her chamber of confidants and lovers. Gregory Potemkin strides its halls like a his whispered counsel shaping military campaigns and colonial ventures. Their relationship, veiled in scandal and strategic advantage, blurs lines between passion and politics. Titles, estates, and armies rise and fall at their behest. Portraits show Catherine draped in velvet, her eyes both languid and commanding, hinting at all the secrets shared behind closed doors. A reign tested by fire, yet rebellion simmers among the oppressed. In 1773, Cossack leader Yemelyan Pugachev, claiming Peter III's identity, ignites the Great Peasant Revolt. For months the flames of revolt lick at the empire's foundations, massacring nobles and razing estates. Catherine, ever unruffled, dispatches generals in winter fatigues and furling shako hats. By spring Pugachev's rebellion is crushed, his head displayed as a grim trophy in Moscow's Red Square. Catherine's victory is Pyrrhic. She clamps down on serf freedoms, shoring up noble loyalty at the cost of enlightened promise. Legacy of ice and fire. By the time a 70-year-old Catherine, hair-streaked with silver, gazes from her hermitage windows onto the Neva's frozen expanse, she rules over an empire twice the size she inherited. The echoes of her reforms resonate in schools and salons. Her conquests hum through trade caravans, yet beyond her gilded triumphs lies a paradox. A sovereign of enlightened vision, who bound her progress to the very institutions she might have dismantled. Beneath the emerald canopy of the Chiapas jungle, sunlight filters through dense foliage and dappled green and gold. The air is thick with humidity and the distant cry of howler monkeys. But at Palenque, silence reigns within its stone arteries. It was here, in 1994, that a sealed chamber was discovered beneath Temple 3, a modest pyramid, overshadowed by its grander sibling, the Temple of the Inscriptions. When archaeologist Fanny and her team breached its hidden entrance, they found a scene untouched by looters. A limestone sarcophagus shrouded in a fine cloud of vermilion dust. A tomb painted in blood and power. The walls of the crypt shimmer with residual cinnabar, the toxic mercury sulfide pulverized into fine powder. Every surface, from lid to floor, wears the hue of freshly drawn blood, a sacrificial gesture, symbolizing life, death, and rebirth. Cinnabar's toxicity underscored the buried soul's elevated status. Only those of greatest importance were consecrated in its scarlet embrace. Jewels of eternity. Inside lay the skeleton of a woman, her bones draped in the soft glow of countless jade beads. A mosaic mask of jade tiles, each carved and polished to imperceptible precision, clung to her skull, preserving her visage for eternity. Necklaces of shell and stone rested at her chest, while delicate jade ear spools framed where her ears once were. Scattered artifacts, obsidian blades, bone needles, Ceramic vessels hint at ritual tools meant to guide her through the underworld's labyrinth. Identity lost to the ages. No glyphs named her. No carved inscription recorded her deeds. Scholars swear that the cinnabar bathe signify parody speculates U.S. Queen, Zakuk, Pakel's mother, or perhaps his consort, the Red Queen. DNA tests proved inconclusive. The forest has held her secrets too long. Yet the tomb's proximity to Pakala's final resting place speaks volumes. They were cosmic counterparts. King and Queen united beyond life. A temple transformed into a portal. The crypt sits deep within the pyramid's core, accessible only by a steep, narrow stairway that descends into inky darkness. Its east-west alignment mirrors the sun's journey, from birth at dawn to death at dusk. Here, there are no murals, only the hush of stone and the red-tinged remains of ritual. By placing her in this hidden chamber, the Maya architects crafted a portal rather than a portrait, an invitation to other realms, where transition eclipses memory. In Maya cosmology, a person's essence survives not through written words, but through ritual, color, and sacred geometry. The Red Queen Silun sculpted in she reigns today not through decrees but through the questions her burial continues to pose. Who was she? What rites guided her? How did she shape Palenqua's destiny? A shaft of sunlight slants through the cobalt blue walls of Casa Azul, illuminating motes of dust dancing in the air. It is July 6, 1907, and in a corner of this vibrant home, a girl named Frida Kahlo enters a world that will both bruise and ignite her spirit. Born amid laughter and color, she would soon know suffering so profound it became the crucible for her artistry. The early scars. At 6 years old, polio seizes Frida's leg, leaving it withered and weak. She hides beneath long skirts, but the seed of resilience is planted. When others pity, she steals her will. Then, on a fateful September afternoon in 1925, a rickety wooden bus collides with her spinal column snaps in 3 places. Her right foot blood and shattered bone merged with splintered wood, an image so raw that, even today, one shudders at the thought. Painting through pain, confined to a hospital bed, Frida's world narrows to plaster casts and medical gloom. But her father, recognizing her fiery core, mounts an easel above her mattress and suspends a mirror from the canopy. In isolation, she begins to paint herself, her own fragmented body, her own fractured soul. Each self-portrait is a revelation. Nails pierce her flesh like martyrdom. Her spine blooms into a cracked column. Veins of color course across her cheeks like rivers of anguish. Yet, in every canvas, her gaze remains unflinching, an act of defiance against the void. Diego, catalyst, and wound. By 1929, Frida's growing reputation draws her to Diego Rivera's vast murals. He, a titan of Mexican art and revolution, is 20 years her senior. Their marriage is a collision of universes. She, the tiny, tenacious sparrow. He, the boisterous, unfaithful elephant. Rivera champions her work, yet betrays her with myriad liaisons, even with Frida's sister. Each betrayal cuts deeper than splintered bone, yet somehow fuels her creativity. Their union, endless cycle of passion and agony, becomes its own living canvas. The politics of pain exile in the United States exposes Frida to roaring industry and capitalist excess. The clang of assembly lines and the glare of wealth deepen her Mexican nationalism. She dons vibrant Taiwana dresses, braids her hair with ribbons, and flowers, each thread a statement of resistance. She paints industrial still lifes that pulse with ominous machinery and portraits of herself in hospital gowns. Her anatomy, laid bare like an anatomical diagram of suffering and survival. The Museum of the Self. Back in Mexico, Frida transforms Casa Azul into a shrine. Walls blaze, cobalt, doorframes glow saffron. Pre-Columbian statues stand sentinel in the courtyard. Parrots swirl overhead in riotous colors. Here she paints some of her most searing works. The two Frida serve dual selves linked by a visible artery. The broken column, her torso split to reveal a Doric pillar. Henry Ford Hospital, where a floating fetus and fractured pelvis orbit her. Greek. Each painting is less a depiction than an excavation of self. Pain is prayer. More than 30 surgeries and relentless infections would have extinguished most flames. Yet Frida persisted, brush in hand, even from her wheel. She once declared, "I paint myself because I am so often alone." In her art, solitude becomes solidarity. Millions see their wounds reflected in her canvases. Her Fina work still lifes of watermelons bleeding red juice. Memento Mori, in festive hues forge, a testament that life's sweetest fruits are inseparable from mortality. The legend ascends when Frida dies on July 13, 1954. At age 47, Mexico mourns its daughter in a grand procession. Yet in death she achieves a transformation beyond her wildest dreams. Feminist and queer movements resurrect her as icon. Artists and revolutionaries adopt her unibrow and braided crown as symbols of defiance. Casa Azul opens as a museum. Her diaries become scripture for the restless soul. long after Frida Kahlo's vibrant pulse faded in 1954. Her presence only grew stronger, an ember of rebellion, refusing to be extinguished by time. What began as personal testament in cobalt halls blossomed into a global anthem for those who dwell on life's fringes, resurrection through feminism. In the tumult of the 1970s, women's movements in the United States and Mexico unearthed Frida from obscurity. Her unflinching portrayal of female suffering, menstruation, miscarriage, marital betrayal, shattered polite taboos. Activists reclaimed her image. The unibrow became a banner of bodily autonomy. Her thorn necklace self-portrait, The Wounded Deer, a rallying cry against gendered violence. Across protest, placards and zines, her face spoke of strength found in vulnerability. Icon of intersectionality, Frida's life threaded the needle of multiple identities. Polio survivor, spinal injury warrior, bisexual pioneer, revolutionary socialist, indigenous dress aficionado, she embodied the complexity that modern discourse presents. Scholars dissected her diaries and letters, revealing a woman who embraced her queerness and disability as integral parts of her art and politics. In universities and community centers, Kahlo studies sprouted as an interdisciplinary field. Art history, gender studies, post-colonial critique, and disability rights all converge under her legacy. Commercial metamorphosis. By the 1990s and 2000s, Frida's visage adorned everything from tote bags to tequila bottles. Critics decried Kahlomania as commodification of trauma, while others saw it as democratization of her message. Murals of her face sprang up in Los Angeles, Detroit, and Snow Palowitch public painting. A mural of solidarity with the marginalized. Luxury brands commissioned canvases of her flowers and skulls, sparking debates about art versus appropriation. Yet in every context, her art refused to be mere decoration. The thorned hearts and tears demanded engagement with the human condition. Cultural pilgrimage, Casa Azul, once Frida's sanctuary, became a shrine for pilgrims of every stripe. Visitors trace the grooves in her easel, peer into her bathrooms, teal-tiled walls, and stand in the courtyard where her pet monkeys played. They leave flowers, paint unibrow, portraits on blank walls, whisper gratitude in multiple languages. Guided tours transform into whispered confession stories of personal pain and renewal, spoken at the foot of her deathbed where her final works still hang. Academic reverberations. Courts of art historians and anthropologists debated her place in 20th century movements. Was she a surrealist? She insisted she painted reality. A Mexican nationalist? She lived global exile. A feminist hero? She acknowledged the label, then outgrew it. Dissertations and conferences examine her brushwork as feminist manifesto, her political activism as extension of creative practice. In each lecture hall, her spirit challenges new students. Paint your truth, she seems to say, even if the brush breaks. The digital dawn. In the 21st century, memes transmute Kahlo into every conceivable context, her gaze overlaid on sports triumphs, social justice campaigns, mental health awareness posts. On Instagram, #hashtag Frida for all and #Feel with Frida rally millions to share their own stories of survival. TikTok users recreate her self-portraits and makeup tutorials. YouTube channels analyze every brushstroke and braiding technique. The digital realm becomes her modern ape, where her message of authenticity finds miniature canvases in every smartphone. Eternal resonance. What makes Frida Kahlo's legacy unstoppable is not mere celebrity, but her radical insistence on life's totality. She painted joy and suffering, politics and prayer, flesh and spirit. Her art is a mirror refusing to indulge vanity. Every onlooker sees their own fractures and triumphs reflected in her bold lines and vivid palettes. In a world still grappling with inequality, health crises, and identity politics, her work offers both sanctuary and provocation. As twilight falls upon our narrative journey from medieval plague huts, through Catherine's frostbitten coups, beneath Palenque's blood-red crypt, and into Frida's cobalt, soul untruth emerges. Across eras and empires, human resilience blossoms in the face of darkness. As dawn breaks on our final chapter, we stand at the crossroads of past and present, where the echoes of hardship and ambition converge into the enduring human spirit. From the Waterland Aube hovels of medieval Europe to the cerulean sanctum of Frida's Casa Azul, each narrative has illuminated how adversity forges resilience and how creativity, courage, and cunning can transform suffering into legacy. The universal crucible of suffering, medieval misery, is forged. The ceaseless grime, hunger, and decay of 1325 demanded endurance beyond mere survival. Each peasant's cracked hands and fevered nights became the anvil upon which communal bonds and simple joys were hammered into sharper relief. Catherine's winter of discontent. In the opulent chill of the Winter Palace, the young Sophie confronted isolation and betrayal. That crucible of court intrigue, frostbitten ambition, and ideological borrowing tempered her into an empress whose fire reshaped an empire. Palenque's silent martyrdom. The Red Queen's Cinnabarith tomb reminds us that, across time, death itself can be ritualized into a final act of power where silence speaks louder than any inscription, and absence carves a space for eternal mystery. Frida's painted pain, polio, bus wreck, marital tempestall became pigments in her palette. Her self-portraits stand as testaments that trauma need not silence the self, but can amplify one's voice to reverberate across decades. The alchemy of adversity, from filth to fellowship. Peasants found community in shared toils and nightly gatherings around the hearth. Our ancestors' original support groups forged in taverns of shared misery. From forced conversion to conscious revolution, Catherine's baptism into orthodoxy was but the first of many. She transmuted foreignness into opportunity, transforming imposed identity into deliberate destiny. From unnamed remains to cultural icon, the Red Queen's namelessness became her power. By erasing her earthly name, the Maya bestowed upon her an everlasting enigma that scholars and dreamers still pursue. From physical fragmentation to wholeness of art, Frida's broken pelvis and lacerated spirit became the stage upon which she reconstructed herself, shards of bone and heart stitched together with brushstrokes of defiance. Legacy beyond lifetimes, meditations on mortality. Each story wrestles with death, whether by plague, palace coup, ritual interment, or chronic illness, yet each also transcends it. Their names, images, and artifacts resist oblivion, inviting each generation to reinterpret their journeys. Rituals of remembrance. From medieval prayers at dusk to Catherine's lavish coronations, from Maya funerary rites to Frida's Casa Azul museum tours, humanity is bound ritual to memory, ensuring that suffering and triumph are neither forgot nor repeated blindly. Inspiration for tomorrow. Activists invoke Frida's likeness to champion equality. Feminists cite Catherine's edicts to argue for incremental reform. Archaeologists continue to probe Palenque's mounds for new revelations. Historians mine medieval chronicles for lessons in communal resilience. Crafting your own narrative. Embrace your crucible. Like those before us, we all face our personal midnights, whether illness, injustice, or loss. These trials can become the raw material for our own life's art. Seek community in darkness. Recall the medieval longhouse's shared warmth and the solidarity of candlelit councils. In adversity, communal bonds transform cold hardship into collective strength. Honor mystery. The Red Queen teaches the power of unanswered questions. Embrace the unknown in your life's journey, recognizing that some doors remain closed so their myths can guide us. Paint your truth. Frida reminds us that self-expression need not be polished or raw authenticity resonates most deeply.